What's up, YouTube? It's the one and only Legend of Winning, aka Low, and I am back with my top 10 point guards in the NBA list. Now, before we get into the list, few things I gotta talk about and really stress about. When I'm making my rankings for each positions, please understand that I am not referring to what a player did 5 or 7 years ago, or even what he necessarily did last year. The rankings that I will have for these positions primarily have to do with my projections of what I expect out of them in this upcoming season. Yes, I will be referring to what they did last year, but that is just a point of reference from what they should be able to build off of, or what I should be expecting from them, as they may have even declined from last year as well. Furthermore, yes, I know Jimmy Butler got traded. I will be making a video on that soon. But until then, me and Agent just recorded a podcast, link in the description. We spent practically the entire podcast talking about that, so go show the podcast some love as well. And with that being said, because I'm pretty sure this video is going to be longer than most, let's get right into the video. Coming in at number 10, I have Kemba Walker, the point guard for the Charlotte Hornets. Now, I know people are going to sit here and tell me, man, Low, that's pretty low, no pun intended, for Kemba Walker. He's a franchise player. He's been doing his thing. 22-point scorer last year on really good shooting splits, and you are correct. And to add on to his praise, he's a phenomenal ball handler. I think he's definitely underrated in that category. Arguably, he's second or third best ball handler in the NBA right now, especially at the point guard position. And he is somebody who can consistently get his own buckets. He's grown significantly within his time in the NBA, and that's something that I must applaud. In this upcoming season, I definitely don't think there's going to be any dip of significance to his numbers, and if anything, he might be able to grow off of what he's been able to produce over the last year. All of that is true. However, I do believe there are some valid questions behind Kemba Walker's level of productivity. Even though he does produce 20 points rather consistently, I do question if he's able to produce that just because he's on a bad team and he's really the only scoring option. Furthermore, defensively, Kemba Walker, he's just not that good of a defender whatsoever, and I would argue he's probably the worst or the second worst defender on this list as well. And furthermore, I do question his impact on that team, but I will shoot Kemba Walker some bail, and this is the biggest reason why he's even on this list. Kemba Walker is a player who hasn't had the benefit of playing with another great player on his roster, and so with his ability to at least be a leader on a team while being great individually, statistically, I have to give him credit where credit is due. Coming in at number 9, we have Jrue Holiday. Even though, yes, I know people last year Jrue Holiday played the shooting guard position, but with Rondo now off the roster, I do believe that he will be spending a little bit more time at that point guard position, and I really don't believe it's going to be that big of an issue. Last year, Jrue Holiday showed the world that he can be a consistent 19-point scorer on great shooting splits, and he is somebody who has the ability to be an elite level defender as well, as he made an all-defensive team. And I'm happy that he's starting to receive the recognition, because when it comes to people who are underrated and overlooked, Jrue Holiday definitely has been at the top of that list over the past 2 to 3 years. This upcoming season, with the departure of not only Rondo but also DeMarcus Cousins, I do believe his offensive workload will increase, which means that I believe his numbers across the board, especially offensively, will increase as well. While also adding to the fact that he will more likely still be an elite level defender, I do believe that is enough to put him ahead of Kemba Walker. And also, a huge shout out to Jrue Holiday as well, as he performed great in the playoffs and low-key exposed Dame as well, which is something that I put into perspective when I was making this list. Coming in at number 8, we have Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry, point guard for the Toronto Raptors, and all-around really solid player. Defensively, he's one of the more overlooked players in the NBA, especially at the point guard position. Not necessarily saying this upcoming season I believe he will be playing at an elite level on the defensive end, but I do believe defensively he will be better while being on the perimeter with Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard. Also, when it comes to his ability to operate off ball, he's one of the handful of players on this list, along with Jrue Holiday as well, who has the ability to be a threat off ball due to his ability to be a consistent three-point shooter, and actually one of the better three-point shooters in the NBA as well, nearly shooting 40% from behind the arc last year, which is something I believe he will continue to grow on this upcoming season. The only reason why I have Kyle Lowry a little bit lower on this list, and I think a lot of people are anticipating, is because of his offensive workload this upcoming season. I do believe we will see a decline with that, largely due to the fact that we're talking about a new coach along with Kawhi Leonard, who is a better all-around player and, in my opinion, a better offensive player than DeMar DeRozan, with his ability to be a consistent 25-point scorer on better shooting splits. So I believe that Kyle Lowry's responsibilities will decline, which more likely will mean that his impact on that team will decline as well, which is why I have him a little bit lower than I think a lot of people are anticipating when I'm making this list. But Kyle Lowry, really good point guard. I think a lot of people don't talk about him enough, but definitely earned his spot on this list. Now, coming in at number 7, we have Ben Simmons, the sophomore playing for the Philadelphia 76ers, a player who I believe will continue to grow and build off of what we saw from him last year, as he had a really good rookie season, consistently giving you 15 or more points, grabbing 6 to 8 rebounds, 6 to 8 assists as well. And even though, yes, he's not a three-point shooter, and quite frankly, he really didn't even attempt a three-pointer throughout the entire season, still was rather efficient as he finished around the lane. Ben Simmons last year defensively showed a lot of promise, and that's probably the biggest reason why I have him higher than everybody else on this list, is because defensively, I believe he's going to take a huge step in the right direction this upcoming season. Now, the reason why I don't have him any higher on this list is due to his inability to even be a three-point threat whatsoever, because as we clearly saw last year, he won't even attempt a three-pointer. And even though, yes, many people would point to the fact that he was still an extremely efficient and effective player without having a three-point shot, it still hurts his team offensively and allows the opponent to defensively shrink the floor and makes it a little bit tougher for his team to score on a consistent basis. And also, you run into the problem with him only scoring 1 point in a pivotal game in the playoffs, which is something that also would not happen if he was a consistent three-point shooter, and it makes it extremely easy for the opposing team to defend him. But nevertheless, being number 7 at the deepest position in the NBA in your second year in the league is something that I don't believe anybody should scoff at, and I believe that's something that's rather impressive. So Ben Simmons at number 7 is a good spot for him. Now, coming at number 6, and I hate to do this, it's going to be Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard, offensively, he can score wherever he wants to, and that's something that he's consistently grown on over the past couple of years, and last year he had another really solid season. Also, when it comes to Damian Lillard, last year being an All-NBA performer, first team, which is the first time that happened in his career, so kudos to him as well. And also, when it comes to his ability to play make, that is something that he's continued to improve on over the past couple of years as well. So again, Damian Lillard, offensively, he's almost unstoppable, especially when he gets going when it comes to scoring. But the negatives, they're starting to outweigh the positives, which is why I have him lower on my list than I wanted to. So defensively, as we all know, he's just not that good whatsoever. Then when it comes to his ability to play make, even though, yes, he's improved, last year in the playoffs, the fact that they were just able to double team him and he had no response whatsoever is rather concerning. And also, when it comes to the playoffs, and this is a huge reason why he is lower on this list, the fact that he just did not show up whatsoever in the playoffs and was swept in the first round is something that I just cannot get over whatsoever. And also, I would love for him to be a little bit more consistent of a scorer, because he tends to be a little streaky from time to time. But even if he has the same shooting splits and still is a 25+ scorer on a night-to-night basis, that will be more than enough, in my opinion, that should keep him in the same conversation of being a top 5 point guard in the NBA. Speaking of top 5, let's move on to the top 5, and first player we have in the top 5 is Chris Paul. Chris Paul, extremely intelligent point guard playing for the Houston Rockets. I have to give props where props are due. Entering the last season, I did not believe that Chris Paul was going to be a player who was going to be able to adapt to a new role and be more of an off-ball threat, but his numbers across the board practically stayed the same, which is something that's extremely impressive. And I think a lot of people don't understand how impressive it is for you to have another role, possibly a limiting role, but your numbers still stay the same. The reason for this largely has to do with the fact that he is one of the more efficient players on this list, along with the fact that he doesn't turn the ball over at a ridiculous rate like a lot of players on this list do as well, especially when you put into comparisons how many assists that he records. And speaking of his assists, even though yes, his assist numbers are not of the likes of a Russell Westbrook or John Wall, I would argue that he is either the best or the second best passer on this list. Now, there are two reasons why I don't have him higher on this list. One, his age and his decline, which I believe we will start to see a little bit more this upcoming season, and B, his offensive impact on the team this upcoming season, in my opinion, may decline as well due to the fact that Carmelo Anthony is on the team and due to the fact that I believe that Chris Paul will be trying to accommodate Carmelo Anthony in the offense, even if that means if it's at the detriment of his own numbers. But even with that being said, Chris Paul is still a highly intelligent defensive player, still a player who has an impact on the team, and when they needed him the most in playoff series, he was able to come through time in and time out again, which is something I cannot necessarily say for a lot of players on this list. Now, coming at number 4, we have John Wall. Now, I tussle with this one as well, but John Wall and the impact that he has on his team, especially in this upcoming season, I feel like will be greater than Chris Paul, which is the biggest reason why I had him over CP3. But John Wall, extremely athletic point guard, finishes around the rim extremely well. He's worked on his 3-ball also. Last year, the mid-range game was in and out, but we'll give him a pass. And defensively, he's spotty, but when he tries and gives the effort on the defensive end, he is one of the elite level defenders on this list, which there are only a handful of them on this list to begin with. The two reasons why I don't have John Wall higher on this list, and there's really only two. One is his turnovers. John Wall has to cut back on the turnovers because it's just getting ridiculous. And two, John Wall has to trust Bradley Beal this upcoming season and be more of an off-ball threat, which is something that I believe should be demanded out of him in this upcoming season, because if he can be more of an off-ball threat and add that dynamic to his game, I believe that his impact on that team will be greater, as he'll be able to help develop Bradley Beal and Otto Porter, give them a little bit more responsibilities while having him being a more dynamic offensive scorer. And also, I do believe that when it comes to just being a better all-around player, that will aid him in the process as well, and more than likely it will reduce some of his turnovers as well. Now, number 3, let's go ahead and get into this, people, because I already know people, they're gonna be upset. Number 3, I have Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook, one of the most explosive players, forget point guards, one of the most explosive players I've ever seen in my life. Extremely entertaining to watch, has the heart of a lion, has the ability to go after it and get it whenever it's needed. Somebody who has the ability to give you 25 plus points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. That is something that is unheard of, especially in the past 30, 40, 50 years. The fact that Russell Westbrook has been able to average that on back-to-back seasons is rather impressive. Also, Russell Westbrook is someone, when he tries, can be an elite level defender or at least be a great defender, and that is something that I did see from Russell Westbrook from time to time. Now, the reason why he is not higher on this list is because of his poor IQ, which is just plagued by his shot selection and his field goal percentage, which has been egregious over the past 2 to 3 years of his career, especially in the playoffs. He's easily one of the 3 least efficient players on this list, and I would argue the fact that both John Wall and Ben Simmons thoroughly understand that they are not great 3-point shooters, but Russell Westbrook, for whatever reason, feels the need to shoot 4 to 5 3-pointers a game sometimes. That means, in my opinion, that Russell Westbrook is indeed the least efficient player on this list. Add on top of the fact that he turns the ball over at a historic rate. Add on top of the fact that he is a player, in my opinion, who does not make his teammates better. Add on top of the fact that even though, yes, he does average a triple-double, keep in mind that some of those numbers are inflated, and I am heavily aware of this. But even with all that being said, Russell Westbrook's talents are still so undeniable that he obviously has to be one of the top 3 point guards in the NBA. Now, coming in at number 2, I have Kyrie Irving. In my opinion, I feel like over the past several months now, Kyrie Irving has slowly become one of the most disrespected players in the NBA. And quite frankly, I believe that it's almost a no-brainer that he is one of the top 3 point guards in the league right now. Kyrie Irving last year efficiently was nearly on Steph Curry's level, as he nearly joined the 50-40-90 club while still giving you around 24 points on a night-to-night basis, which is nearly unheard of. Last year, Kyrie Irving, in my opinion, he proved a lot of people wrong, including myself, who thought that he was one of those players who could not play in the system and be more off-ball oriented, because last year, while in that Brad Stevens offense with the Boston Celtics, he was still impactful even when he didn't have the ball in his hands. Defensively, he's not an elite level player, and I don't want to make it seem like he's of the likes of a Drew Holiday or even a Russell Westbrook when Westbrook tries, but the effort that I saw from Kyrie Irving on the defensive end is definitely appreciated, and I would argue that his effort I saw more consistently on the defensive end than I saw from Russell Westbrook. Furthermore, when it comes to Kyrie Irving, his handles are remarkable. I would argue the greatest ball handler the league has ever seen. And on top of that, his ability to be a playmaker is something that he's consistently improved on. Now, the only knock that I have against Kyrie Irving, which may be another problem this upcoming season, but hopefully since he got the surgery it won't be, is his inability to stay healthy. Not necessarily saying that if he was healthy he would be better than Curry, but I do believe if he was a consistently healthy player, I do believe the margin between him and Westbrook would be wider, in my opinion. But until that day comes, I could easily see why many people would put Westbrook over Kyrie because of Kyrie's inability to be there every single night like we've seen from Westbrook for majority of his career. Now, when it comes to the number 1 spot, it's obviously Steph Curry. Steph Curry, my opinion, one of the top 3 players in the NBA, the best point guard in the league, and he does everything that you can ask for of a player outside of being an elite level defender. Let's kind of get that out the way. But offensively, Steph Curry is arguably the greatest player in the NBA right now. He scores the ball efficiently everywhere on the floor. Doesn't matter if he's finishing around the rim, the 3-point shot, mid-range game, coming off the dribble, reading screens. He's an amazing shooter. I would argue the greatest of all time. Also, Steph Curry makes his teammates better even without having the ball in his hands, with the gravity that he pulls from the defensive assignments. Also, he allows teammates to come on his team, be very impactful, which I believe is extremely unselfish of a player, which is obviously a great characteristic that you would love to have from a point guard. And when it comes to his ability to play make, I know many people look at his assist numbers and they're like, oh, well, he's not that good of a playmaker. No, he's a solid playmaker who's just in the system that doesn't allow him to handle the ball as much as he may want to, or that he has the ability to do so. So his assist number is very similar to Kyrie Irving as well. His assist numbers may not reflect his ability to play make, but he's still a really solid playmaker. And even though, yes, his numbers across the board may not be as great as a Russell Westbrook or even a John Wall, be very mindful, and again, very similar with Kyrie Irving, the system that he's playing in will obviously hold him back statistically, but I'm pretty sure we all know Steph Curry, you know, when he get in this bag, he can really get in his bag. So Steph Curry, greatest point guard in the NBA. The only knock that I have against him, like I kind of alluded to earlier, is that he's not an elite level on-ball defender, but he's an extremely intelligent off-ball defender, and he does give you effort when it's needed. So with that being said, people, please let me know what you think about my list in the comment section below. Also, leave a comment of your top 10 point guards in the NBA right now in the comment section as well. And until next time, I will see you all later. Peace.